Bernstein again. Big opening. Pass 5. Pass 10. Vermont's a man. And he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards of the carry.
Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, it's been a little bit too long.
Buddy.
How you doing today?
Dude, it's the summer, man. Everyone needs a break in the summer. That and, having a kid doesn't your schedules don't line up very well. But dude, every day is a holiday. On the podcast, I mean, we are literally, these dudes are back. Squat Fest is coming up in a couple weeks. I mean, you're looking at we're counting down to the season.
We absolutely are. We're bummed we're not going to be at Squat Fest this year. Wasn't in the travel cards for the two of us. We'll be back next year. Don't you worry about that. But there will be a lot of exciting stuff going on in and around Squat Fest. Make sure you, I know that Coach Collins will have stuff on his social media. The team will have stuff on their social media. So get ready for that here in the next couple of weeks. Get ready for us to be back, more consistent schedule, more shows, more interviews. And Bernie, we're only 2.5 months out from being back on that Monday morning fullback bandwagon. Hopefully with a better record than 7-6 this season. We'll be talking about that final record a little bit later on in the show. But before we get into today, I want to remind the good folks tuning in that we are presented by betonline.ag. They continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs, baseball, golf, soccer, right up to all the top fights in UFC and MMA and boxing, all the stats, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Once the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 different slot games. Head on over to the website today, and to get in on the action, use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the game starts here. And our good friends at Oakbridge Wealth Management, for all you current and future professional athletes, get with our guy Chris Anicetti over at Oakbridge Wealth Management to get your money right. That's Oakbridge Wealth Management. Chris Anicetti on Instagram at Anicetti_. I'm blanking on the Instagram name right now. Sorry, Chris. At Oakbridge_Anicetti. That's what it is. That's ANICETE. Chris Anicetti, Oakbridge Wealth Management. All right, Bernie. Today, though, still off season, but we're going to tackle a couple different. We're going to tackle a couple different questions. We've got 10 burning questions for the 2024 season. So we're going to start, Bernie. I'm going to throw some questions at you. You can throw some questions at me. We're going to see how this goes. Try to get 3 to 5 minutes here on 10 different questions. We got to start with the quarterback because for the second year in a row, the Badgers will have a transfer quarterback coming in from another big name program. This year, it's Tyler Van Dyke coming in from Miami. Bernie, my first question is, can Tyler Van Dyke get comfortable with this offense quickly enough as that schedule is really tough out the gate?
It's so interesting. I think so. But again, even when you look, Tana Mordecai didn't look super comfortable up until probably the end of the season. So, it's a whole new world with the transfer portal and guys moving all over the place, having new coaches. I mean, we're talking about a whole new world than you and I, especially me, are used to. That guy's had multiple coaches. He's had multiple offenses. Now, I think he can pick it up. And I think what's good about this year, and we'll get into this more, is I think our O-line's improved. I think our running back room is improved. And I think our wide receiver room is improved. And I think our defense is improved. So he'll have more opportunities. I think he has got better skill guys. And I think the O-line is going to help more than they did last year. So can he be comfortable in this offense quickly? I'm going to give him a couple games. I think Alabama's going to be a real big fist fight. And if we're not, keyed up at that point, we're in trouble. But do I think he can come out the gates going against some, subpar teams? For sure. It's, can the offense look really good like they did at LSU?
So over on Believe in Big Ten, our friends over there, Adam Carricker, former Nebraska defensive lineman, and Red Tyler had an interesting take. They only think that Tyler Van Dyke is the 10th best quarterback in the Big Ten, and I think that
In the
is
entire Big Ten?
yeah. And I'm going to disagree with them.
So at 10, I had Tyler Van Dyke from Wisconsin, who obviously transferred in from Miami. And you talked a little bit about him. He's got was a highly recruited kid going to Miami. I think he's got some real talent. I think that there's a lot about the experience at Miami that might have sheltered that talent a little bit, whether that was a shaken confidence, whether that was maybe not a perfect scheme fit there in Miami. But I think this is going to be really interesting at Wisconsin, because last year it did not feel like this offense truly found rhythm in Phil Longo's, spread it out type of air raid offense. It felt like a weird fit initially, right? Going to Wisconsin, where they put offensive linemen into the league, year after year after year, running backs into the league year after year after year. They had a 6'3", 250-pound running back in Braylon Allen that got drafted this year. But that had come into last season, and everyone was like, how is this going to work with Braylon Allen in a dominant run game, a physical run game? Now, look, air raid will run the football. Let's make no mistake about it, right? You can go back to Mike Leach's days. He loved to run the football too, but it's just done a different way, and it never felt like they had the person. I was like, square peg, round hole, or round peg, square, one of the two. Whatever. Yep. You get the analogy there.
It wasn't working.
Yeah. So I feel like Tyler Van Dyke, bringing him in here for a real chance to run this system, I think has the opportunity for a better fit. I've talked to Tyler. I think he's a very prideful guy. I think he is a very competitive dude. And I'm really interested to see the full scope of his talent come to play here.
And like Brett said, I'm interested in the full scope of his talent, right? Because I've heard people talk about him as just sort of a statue in the pocket, and that's not really true. I don't think people realize how good of a runner Mordecai was before last year. Mordecai did a lot with his feet. I don't expect Van Dyke to do as much with his feet, but I still expect him to get a couple key first downs every now and again with them, and to be able to move a little bit more than people expect of him. I think penciling him as the 10th best quarterback in the Big Ten is very, very below. I don't see him being necessarily a top 5 guy between Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Drew Aller, Miller Moss, Will Rogers. I think those guys are probably all a little bit more proven or have more upside when you look at someone like a Miller Moss at USC. But I mean, come on, Tyler Van Dyke, I think he's in that next tier with Aiden Childs over at Michigan State, in guys that we've seen do the work before. Same with a Max Brosmer up at Minnesota. I don't like to give Minnesota credit for anything, but Brosmer was the best player at the position in FCS last year. So he's going to be interesting to watch. But Tyler Van Dyke, to me, probably sits somewhere in that 5, 6, 7 range in terms of quarterbacks in the conference. But Bernie, as you mentioned, my second burning question here for the season is, how well can the offensive line keep him upright? Because we saw real issues with that last year. And it's time for Matt to be a broken record again. This Matt, Perko, to be a broken record again, and talk about the snaps. I think just having good snaps will help keep Van Dyke upright better than what we saw last year out of Tanner Mordecai and, to a lesser extent, Braden Locke. But Bern, what are your thoughts here on the offensive line with a couple new starters at left guard and center?
We're talking about at center, Renfro, dude. Yeah. That guy looked amazing in the bowl game. I'm extremely excited for him, because it looks like we didn't drop down at all when we lost Bortolini and Benchwall, right? So, to me, I think that play is going to be elevated and we'll be fine. Listen, dude, you can hide interior linemen. We need the tackles, especially left tackle, to play really well. I think Van Dyke only has a great season. First off, he's never played a snap in the Big Ten, so we're only just guessing at what he could be. Dude, the dude could be the best player in the Big Ten. He could also be the 10th quarterback in the Big Ten. We just don't know. But I'll ask, I want to punt kind of back to you with what those guys were saying is, how long do we let Phil Longo, I mean, not let, that's not the right word, but how long until Phil Longo has the dudes where he needs them and the quarterbacks have been there long enough? I mean, we have Mabry, who's, I mean, are we filling a gap for a year with a guy who's a proven good player so we can get that dude 3 years deep? So when he shows, or 2 years deep, right? He's going to be a freshman this year. When he shows up second, third year, that dude is ready to go. So I guess I ask you this question. We can talk about the O-line for days. I actually am very excited for them. I love the coach, and I think they can only get better. So, and they have the guys, they can do it. Like, we've seen them do it. We've seen them maul people. It's just consistency, right? You saw at the end of the LSU game, like, they dropped off the last 3 minutes. It's like we've never been in this competitive situation to win a game. So I think all this experience, there's a lot of dudes who are upperclassmen. I'm excited. Listen, it doesn't mean, like when I was a senior, we lost Klink and who's the Dan Benning. And, you had these dudes who never played a snap in Matt Lawrence and Jason Palermo step in. We didn't really lose much. I mean, guys need to be ready to do this stuff. So that's my rant. But I ask you, like, are we in a place where Phil Longo's offense, dude, last year is over. Those guys can talk about last year. Like, we had a whole new offense. But is it next year or is it the year after where these things all start to click?
I have to think it's this year, and I have to think that the addition of Coach Blasick, like we've talked about, like we've talked with him at the offensive line, is going to go a long way in terms of getting these guys really where they need to be. And I also think that with the offseason in the weight program, I think that both Coach Longo and Coach Collins are able to see sort of where they went wrong last year. Like, I think there were a couple guys last year who maybe were probably carrying a little bit too much weight on them, and probably going to be a little bit leaner this year in order to be a little bit quicker off the ball. So I, like you said, I could talk about offensive line all day. I am excited for the Joe Brunner era at left guard, as much as one can be excited about left guard play. Brunner is a kid, an in-state kid who I think has a really big upside. I'm buddies with one of his trainers from high school, and he raves about Joe. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do on the interior of the offensive line. But that line is going to have to do some work to open up holes for question number 3. Bernie, do we get a full, healthy season from Ches?
Man, I hope so. By the way, Benchwell's still on the team, so that's a mistake by me. So sorry about that, everyone. But I really hope so. I mean, he said things are looking good. You know what sucks? It's like if you get a couple fluke things happen. Last year didn't. It was a fluke, right? Like somebody fell, and it's like those things are hard to just. It's not like he was sprinting and he tore a hamstring. It's not like it happened 3 years in a row. It's kind of like fluke accidents. But I think if we can keep him, what did that dude from the Chargers say? He's like, oh, we had the part where I didn't want to run 300 times in a season. Is that what was it? Chubb? No, that's all right.
I don't. Austin Eckler?
Yeah, he's like, I just didn't want to run 300 times. Listen, in the NFL and in these college places, you don't need to do that anymore. I expect it to be a workload by committee, and I'm hoping that Ches gets a majority of the reps. But at the same time, there are good dudes in that room, so they can split reps. You can keep them healthy and fresh and competitive in the fourth quarter. And he's not a Braylon Allen, like he's not a tank battering ram. And that's just not his game. So I'm excited to see a majority of guys play so Ches can be healthy for the whole season.
I think the highs we saw from Ches last year, like when he was at his best, when he was healthy, he was a more effective back in the system than Braylon was. Like, that's not to say he's a more talented back necessarily. That's not to say he's a better fit for the NFL than Braylon is, but he fit that system better. He fits the system better than Braylon, and I think
he was starting games.
Yeah, and I think that's Howie Walker, who they've brought in to be his companion in the backfield, is the type of hammer that they need. Who isn't going to have the big top speed, but he can accelerate to his top speed pretty quickly, and he's a load to bring down. I mean, you got to put like a freaking convention on between him and AJ Dillon for who's got the best freaking quads in the state of Wisconsin. Wait, is AJ still playing for the Packers? I don't remember. I don't know if he went somewhere else in the offseason. Either way, he's still got great quads, and so does Tawi Walker. And it'll be interesting to see if any of the three true freshmen play, whether it's Gideon Atuka, who's sort of Tawi Walker 2.0 has been described, or either of the two guys who are coming in to campus as we speak, and Darian Dupree or Jones out of Maryland. So that will be something to keep an eye on in the backfield. Switching out to the wide receivers, Bernie. Question number 4 for me: who steps up at wide receiver outside of Will Pauling? We know Will Pauling is the guy operating out of the slot, but who do you think is going to step up as, the most reliable number 2 option for Tyler Van Dyke?
But, I think there's a lot of options. Like we had Coach on saying that they're going to compete. I'm a big Bryson Green fan.
Yep.
For his just big play potential,
Mm-hmm.
but from the bowl game, Kekahuna, gave me all those warm and fuzzies, catching the ball, being open and just finding space. I'm a big fan, so I think those guys. But that room is huge.
Yeah, it's a big room. They got a lot of guys. They've got, I've been a long time Vinny Anthony guy. I think on this podcast, I've talked about Vinny Anthony a lot. I think he can do a lot in the return game as well. Kekahuna will be part of the return game too. But I think those two guys are sort of two names to keep an eye on top of Bryson Green. And then the wild card is CJ Williams. The wild card to me is,
right,
can CJ Williams live up to that high 4-star hype? The hype he had, being a top 60 player in the nation coming out of high school. Is he going to be, can he capitalize on that? He was inconsistent last year. And I think this is a make or break year for him in a lot of ways. And so will CJ be able to become that guy on the outside? Because he has the frame for it. And if he can be more consistent in his route running, more consistent in his catching, then that opens up even more over the middle for those slot guys like Pauling, like Kekahuna. I think we're going to see a lot of, or I'm hoping that we'll see, a lot of formations where you get both Kekahuna and Pauling on the field together in one way, shape, or form, because both of those guys, especially with the ball in their hands, are, slippery and elusive and have the potential to be, big time playmakers. So, I think the wide receiver, it's crazy to think though, Bernie, that the wide receiver position on this offense might be the deepest out of all the position groups.
It is. I actually think this question could be morphed into, will we see a tight end step up and be that guy? Because we got the dude from LSU.
Yeah.
So that's the position I think we are missing the most.
Yes.
Is Owen Daniels, Beckham, morph, like that guy. So who does that? Who can be that guy?
Yeah, and it's been a couple of years since Jake Ferguson was here and doing all of the work. And Ashcraft, had some moments as a true freshman, but it's tough to be a true freshman tight end in the Big Ten. We'll see what kind of steps he's made. You mentioned McGowan, the transfer from LSU, who's more of a pure pass catcher, whereas Ashcraft is more of sort of a hand in the dirt kind of guy. All the reports from spring are that Grant Steck is like ahead of schedule, as he is a big, strong, strapping young lad out of the state of Illinois, who really could be in the 2 deep as a true freshman if things break right. And then you've got your veterans. You've got Riley Nowakowski, who's the former fullback, and has been has had a couple flashes. Definitely doesn't have prototypical size, but if we know anything about Nowakowski, he's going to outwork everyone else around him. So
he's very reliable.
He's reliable. He's definitely reliable, especially as a blocker. But I think that if they're really going to run this offense at the tempo that they need a tight end out there who can block and catch and not, have to telegraph what they are going to do with personnel packages. So right. I think
you gotta love. Steck is. You have a bunch of these guys are 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260. That's very, very good height and weight for tight end.
Yeah.
That's like what you want to see on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nowakowski's 6'1". No matter his weight, he's 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think he actually played one of the best tight ends last year, but he's 4 inches shorter. Dude, I would have been the best tight end if I was 6'6". But I was 6'1", so I was a fullback. But these guys, I think that is a position that could change the entire offense. And you could see that we went out and got guys specifically for tight end. And we have, I actually think the wide receivers are proven at this point. Yeah, they can beat some improvement, but those dudes are going to play at a high level. Where can we fit in a tight end to really change and mess with teams, defensive personnel and get the upper hand? And I think it's the tight end position.
Yeah, that is, like you said, Bernie, maybe the biggest question mark on the offense. But to me, the biggest question mark, period, is the special teams, as they have been for a long time. Burning question number 5. Will we stop kicking the ball out of bounds on kickoffs in 2024?
Over, under, how many? I say 3 at least. I say 3. You want
4? No, I'm going to put the number at 4.5. You're going to go over.
Okay, so you're going to go over.
No. I'm saying I'm putting the number at 4.5. You have to choose over or under. I think.
Okay,
I think
I'm going to go under, but only because I'm going to say probably 4.
Because I think there
was one every
7
3 games.
I think there were 7 last year.
I think when you're focusing, coming in new, you're a whole new staff, and you're focusing on getting offense, defense. There's a lot of things that happened last year. Special teams, as it is a third of the entire, your entire team, it gets put on the back burner. I mean, it can. I don't know if that's true. Wasn't at every practice. I just remember we practiced so many special teams. You literally want to kill somebody because you practice so much of it. And I mean, granted, I don't remember how many blocked punts there were. There might have been none when I was playing, because we literally did punt 50 times a day. Before practice even started, we were sweating with our helmets on. And that's just punt. Think about how many other things there are. So it's got to be a priority. And you can't give a team like Alabama, like USC, like any of these good teams, the ball on the 35. It's just, you already cut the field by 15 yards is a lot in college football. So even if it's 20 yards, you just can't give it to them. No,
every yard is hard enough to come by. So why are you going to give them 10, 15 free yards? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's, it goes back to just do your job. Just do your job, and please don't kick the ball out of bounds.
Just kick it out of the end zone.
Kick it out of the end zone, but no, don't kick it out to bounds on the sides. You can kick it through the end zone. That's fine, but just not off the side is not what we want to do. All right, let's flip to the back half of these burning questions and the other side of the football. On the defensive side, Burn, what changes do you think we'll see on the defensive line, both in terms of schematic changes or personnel changes? Obviously Gio has transferred to LSU for the last year of his eligibility. So we're definitely going to see a couple new faces at nose, whether it's Ben Barton, Kurt Neal, maybe even redshirt freshman Jamel Howard, depending on how he progresses. What are you, though, looking forward to on the defensive line, which for me, Bernie, is the position on that side of the ball that needs the most improvement or the most work?
Yeah, I think we went out, we got the guys we needed to. I think we might have some young dudes play this year, or play in some capacity.
They're going to have to. Yeah.
I think we have to, listen, we were a 3-3-5, no, a 3-4 team, which everyone says, oh, it was 3 down line, but completely different responsibilities. And in the 3-3, it is wacky, that defense. So you have to have dudes have to break all these habits, right? That Jimmy coached into them for years. And then you have to break them to get coached into the habits that you want out of a 3-3-5. It's not easy. People expect you to just pick it up. Dude, I can't even get Excel. I have to, think about how hard it is to figure out how to do the sum on Excel for some people. It's impossible, right? So compare it to that. If you were doing Excel and you had to be really proficient in it and you're not, you have to really learn. And if you're doing it one way and then Excel has an update, you got to figure out the other way to do it. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think they got to really step up, not make a lot of plays, but make the O-line block them. I think we have another question, but the linebackers are going to be so much better, and I think they're going to stop the run because the D-line is going to do their job. I wouldn't see anything flashy from the D-line. You might not even know their names by the end of the season, but that is a good thing, and that is a hard habit to build in, right? Do your job, and no one's going to recognize you is very hard to do. You know who did it the best? Jason Jefferson. Jefferson played on the Bills forever. He was in the league forever. Nobody probably knows his name. He was a D lineman on probably one of the best D lines I've ever seen at Wisconsin, but maybe not ever, but definitely up there with Antosh Hawthorne. You had
Erasmus James, Jonathan Welsh,
and Jonathan Welsh. So you had Jonathan Welsh, and you had I love J-Dub. So you had those guys who did their jobs. And no one knew who they were, but they were the most reliable. Jason Jefferson was like the most reliable defensive person ever. And that's a lot, that's high praise, but he really did his job. So imagine if we have two Jason Jeffersons, no one's going to know who they are, but they're going to do their job. And that allows all the defensive other guys to make plays.
Yeah, it's tough being a line because you're not going to get the glory of being a sack master really in this defense. Like your job is to occupy blockers in a lot of ways, like occupy blockers and, get a lot of weird run fits. Basically like you might get to pass rush every once in a while, but a lot of the pass rush is going to come from the linebackers. And so, we really only saw James Thompson last year as, the guy returning, who's definitely the leader of the unit. He's the best player on the defensive line. And actually in a lot of ways, one of the best players on the defense. He's someone I think, with another year of growth, like I think we're going to get out of him. I think he's someone who's going to be drafted next year, probably like a 4th or 5th round guy, because he's got the frame, he's got enough explosive athleticism that I think someone at the next level is really going to like him and attach onto him. But the rest of the defensive line is still a big question mark. And so do they move to a lot of, I imagine during, obvious passing downs, it's going to be a lot of 2-down linemen with more and more linebackers, but just, can they make that front three really work and hold up enough so that they don't have to rely on the linebackers to do absolutely everything, and sort of really free them up to run around and make plays and do what they do best. And that leads into question number 7 I've got for you, Bern. Middle linebacker room is going to look different. 2 starters from the beginning of last year are gone. Jake Chaney's really the only guy sticking around. Christian Allegro, who saw some snaps as the season went on, also will be there. But one of the biggest names they brought in the transfer portal, Jaheim Thomas, from Arkansas, before that Cincinnati. What impact will he and Tackett Curtis have coming in this season?
This is another room that has a lot of guys who could really, do something special. Jake Chaney, we can put, I think, all of our eggs in that basket for an inside linebacker. I love Jordan Turner and give me the Muma, but they were the old school defense. I hate saying it, but it's like me. If I played when Phil Longo came to the team, I might not be a Badger, right? Or I would be holding the clipboard because I didn't fit the offense. And I think those guys are great football players that didn't fit the scheme, right? They're not a middle linebacker in a 3-3. They're not the technically inside linebackers in a 3-3, right? They're just not those dudes. And again, you're talking about 4 or 5 years in a single defense. Do you know how hard it is to break that habit and not do things or try to do things that, Coach Tressel is trying to get out of you? It's probably mind-blowing for those guys. You think you can do it, it seems easy, and then you get in game situations and nothing's that easy. So
your instincts are so far off, right? Because you've built up all of these instincts over 3, 4, 5 years of what to do. Now you have to do something different, and it's one thing to do it in practice, but once your lizard brain takes over while you're in game, it's really hard to break those instincts. And so when you get guys who are more true 3-3 linebackers, like a Jaheim Thomas, who originally came to Cincinnati to play this defense, played at Arkansas, who's got the prototypical size, like you said, like Muma and Jordan are good players and good guys, but they're not like 6'4" with 4.5 speed like Jaheim Thomas is. Like, that guy is a different level of athlete. And we saw some of that athleticism with Allegro last year as well. We're going to see it with Tackett Curtis. Middle linebacker, probably the deepest position on the team.
And I think it needs to be. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but also guys need a rest. Guys need a break. It's the whole new, it's a whole new world where you're not trying to kill people playing the whole entire game. You're switching it up. You're putting guys in maybe in different situations. Maybe one of those guys is a better pass rusher. Maybe one of those guys is a better run pass pro. I'm so tired, dude. My kid was up all night last night, so I'm like, it's hard to remember. But getting back in pass coverage, someone's better in pass coverage. So I think you're going to see a lot of different guys. But the number one thing that they need to do is stop the run. And I think you saw the team go out and get guys who they believe can play tomorrow. And that excites me about, they did it with the guy from Albany, the D lineman. They also got some really good recruits. But I think they're filling gaps that they're going to win with tomorrow. And I think that's huge. And a lot of those guys were inside backers. They got it all over the team. But you got to think that you're going to see much better run fits than you saw last year, which last year we hardly saw any. So I think the complete mold of the inside linebackers is a different type of guy. And Jay Chaney, Christian Allegro, they were the ones who could kind of figure it out during the season. And I'm not trying to ding anyone. This is hard, man. It's hard to switch from one defense over 4 or 5 years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, to a completely different one that no one plays anywhere. Like, you don't play it in high school. You don't play it in college, really. You don't play it when you're on the schoolyard. So like, it's brand new, and some guys just don't fit that. Look at the NFL. They draft guys. I'm a Jets fan. They draft dudes they think will fit, not who I think, who they think. So that's, again, how many years do we let them have to really be up to speed? I think this year will be so much better. And I think coming up next couple years, I mean, you're talking about, we're getting some of the best guys. What are we, top 10 in recruiting right now?
Right now, the 2025.
We just got T.Y. Hilton's kid.
Yeah, right now the 2025 class is ranked 5th in the country.
Like 5th in the country? We were not even 50th in the country like 3-4 years ago. So think about where we're going, and that should be the focus. Listen, there are some gap years here that might be tough. Last year was tough. You and I were not very happy about it. But look at what they're doing. They're getting linemen. They're getting running. I mean, they're doing everything. They're getting quarterbacks. We never got these dudes. We're getting 4 stars. We used to get like 2 4 stars out of a class of 10 with everyone else was a 3-star. I mean, you're talking about now we might get 2 or 3 stars and get all 4 stars. It's so wacky that we just gotta wait for the guys to get their guys in positions and playing on the field and up to speed. I think this year's a big year, but I think next year and the year after will be huge.
Well, listen, the Badgers
off on a rant.
The Badgers got a commitment from another big-time defensive end, a high 3-star from South Florida a couple hours ago, Wilnerson Telemock, about 6'6", 260 defensive end. So, it keeps on rolling. I love seeing South Florida guys coming up to Wisconsin. I think you really have to reestablish that South Florida pipeline. Obviously, you're not going to beat Miami and Florida State for all like the really good kids. But, when Wisconsin's been at its best, it's had, at least 5, 6, 7 guys on the roster from South Florida, because we know that's, one of the best hotbeds in the country. And we've seen this staff also trying to tackle Pennsylvania a lot harder in Texas. And, that's where the good football players are. Let's face it. So you got to go out there and you got to compete and you got to get guys from those parts of the country if you're going to, compete on a national level. But one of the other issues I think the Badgers faced last year, we talked about run fits, but the pass rush also wasn't really something to write home about. And we had Daryl Peterson on earlier this spring, and we had I thought, an awesome conversation with him, Bernie. Like, he was, he's one of the most impressive kids that we've gotten to talk to here on the show. But they also brought in John Pius and Leon Lowry in the transfer portal to add to the outside linebacker room going forward. Might get a healthy Aaron Witt as well, which would be finally. I feel like he's been injured every year he's been on campus, but he's still got a lot of athletic upside. Bernie, will the pass rush be improved on last year?
Well, I mean, it has to be. Like, it just has to be. You can't. I don't think there's a way to. We didn't do a good job. I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but we didn't really do a good job on pass rush. We weren't getting pressure. We weren't making QBs move in the pocket. We weren't collapsing pockets. We were letting. I mean, look, we lost games because of it. We were letting teams like Northwestern and Indiana dictate what they wanted to do. Now, granted, some of those guys are still pretty good football players, but like, we let them do things that we're not, as a D line and as pass rush outside linebackers, we can't let happen. So I think if you look at it, I think they if you're at the drawing board after the season, you go, who do we need? I think DBs were good. I mean, you always want to get more guys because you just want more guys. But I think we got some studs back there. So the thing is, we need linebackers, we need D linemen, obviously, and we need our pass rush and run fits. Now, that seems like it's the whole defense, which it kind of is. But I think because we were so poor in run fit, I mean, we let teams run all over us.
Yeah.
We didn't let teams pass all over us. I mean, I thought we did okay. It wasn't fantastic, but we were also on the field the whole game.
Well, and that's the thing, because the defensive backs are great, but like, when you can't get sacks on third down, when you can't get some of those big stops on third down,
get off the field.
You can't get off the field. And I think John Pius is going to be a real revelation for people coming from William and Mary, FCS All-American. He might not be able to completely overpower players in the Big Ten with his physical abilities like he was able to do in like, I don't think they're Patriot League there. I'm completely blanking on the league that they're in FCS, so shame on me right now on that one. The CAA, the Colonial, that's the league that they're in, the CAA, the Colonial Athletic Association. But he was one of the best players, one of the best conferences there in FCS. And Bernie, it's I'm weird. Come on now.
I know.
I know weird facts like that.
That might be the first time I ever heard of that.
I think Pius is going to be really good. I think Pius is going to be really, really good.
Listen, I think they're good. They're going to be better because they can't not be, right. I think last year we watched coaches that might not have put full trust in their guys to do their responsibilities, and then didn't open up the playbook on defense to do blitzes, to do things, to get the right fits. And I think it showed. This year, I think you're going to see a lot. I would love for them to come out and say, we're just going to be more aggressive. We have DBs and safeties that can do it, and we're just going to be way more aggressive. And I think we are going to be. Only because we weren't last year and it didn't help us. So why not just say, let's go get these guys. Let's go get these QBs. At least make them run. Then you can put a hit on them. Like, some of our backers are fast dudes, right? And that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Have quarterbacks run side to side.
Yeah, and I think we're going to use Jaheim Thomas, the middle linebacker, as a pass rusher as well. He was able to be an effective pass rusher in the SEC. I see no reason why he can't be someone that they really, it's a cliche, but like, queen on the chessboard. You can move him around to a lot of different places. He can do a lot of different things due to his size and his athleticism. And I'm really excited to see what he does. I mean, he could be a dominant player in the Big Ten. But the linebackers might be the deepest, but I think the best unit overall is the defensive backs if not just the defense, if not the entire team, because they have two potential All-Americans in Hunter Wohler and Ricardo Hallman. But there's always room for improvement, Byrne. So what does the unit need to do to make an improvement in an already solid year from 2023?
That's a good question. I just think a little, I just think a couple guys need to step up. I'm really excited about Delancey just to see what he can bring to the team, make people better. Who's going to be our nickel guy?
I mean, it's still up in the air. There's a couple different guys. It could be Austin Brown, who's a safety, but started there in the bowl game. Could be Max Lofi, who's sort of flown under the radar a little bit, but definitely could also play the nickel. Delancey could play that nickel spot as well. To me, though, that is actually the position that needs to step up the most. I thought Maitre played a ton of snaps last year, but I thought he was also the weak link in the defensive backfield. I think that Wooler, obviously, he's sort of that emotional leader and one of just the best overall football players in the Big Ten. Ricardo Hallman obviously was an All-American last year, ball hawk, 7 interceptions last year. I don't think he gets 7 interceptions again, just because I don't think people are going to be throwing near him as much, because they know that he's probably going to pick it off if they do. But he's got a heck of ball skills, even if he's not. It's interesting.
But it's the other
a lot
side.
of the kids at
it's who right.
Well,
it's the other side.
It looks like Forkarine is going to start across from him, who started the second half of last year, took over for Alexander Smith. He was the Forkarine was the transfer who had played for Coach Mitchell earlier at the Division II level, and had come up from Grand Valley State with Coach Mitchell. He's made some strides. We've been hearing good things about him, but who's going to start? So it's sort of like, where does Austin Brown play? Does Austin Brown stick at safety and start next to Wooler ahead of Kamoy Latu? Does he play nickel? Does he sort of rotate between the two? That's sort of like the big question to me. And do any of the second year defensive backs, like guys who are now redshirt freshmen for the most part, or true sophomore and Jonas Duclona, do any of those guys see any real snaps? Amari Snowden is one of the most ballyhooed cornerback recruits Wisconsin's ever gotten. He was in Coach Fick's first class last year. Didn't see the field. He redshirted, but he's 6'4". He's long. He's a supreme athlete. Will we start to see him a little bit? Will we see Duclona? Will we see some of these other guys, Justin Taylor, come in and get any snaps on any of the true freshman defensive backs? I mean, they're bringing in multiple 4-star true freshman corners. I mean, will any of those guys see the mix? There's more competition in the defensive back room than, it's there in the receiver room, which is so weird. It's so weird that like the DBs and wide receivers are in a lot of ways like some of these like crazy deep competitive rooms. And it's not the running back room. It's not the offensive line room, right? It's a very different era of Badger football. In just in terms of like, where has this staff amassed the most talent? But on top of that, like, what does Alex Grinch do? Like, how does his schematics differ? How much is that going to be in the safety room, especially? How different is he in taking over as the new co-defensive coordinator? So that's going to be something to watch for. But Bernie, final pressing question: what's the Badgers' final record?
Man, this is a good one, because we got playing a lot of good teams now. But I'm still high on our guys. I'm still high. I still think it's a 9-10 win season. I got to go. I think last year we could have had 9-10 wins if we just pulled out a couple of the games that we just didn't play to our ability. But I think we're going to be so much better. I don't care we're playing a lot of better teams, although I think it matters. But I'm going to say we're going to win 9 games next year.
Yeah, 9-4, 9-4. So 9. I think that's maybe 8-4 regular season with a bowl win or something like that. So I think obviously those tough games that we've talked about, Alabama in week 3 of the season is going to be a tough one. I'm disappointed that Alabama is an 11 a.m. kickoff. I was hoping it was going to be a night game, but so that's a little bit unfortunate. Luckily, they get a bye after that before they have to head to USC, which will be another tough one in the Coliseum, against Southern Cal. Penn State at home. I'll be at that game. I'm really looking forward to being there for that one. At Iowa is always tough. I don't care how bad Iowa is. They beat us last year when they had the most pathetic offense in the history of modern football. Oregon's going to be tough, and as much as I hate Minnesota, they can still be tough sometimes. So, but there are tough games.
But out of those, they're tough games. But out of those that you just named, to me, the toughest are Alabama, Penn State, Oregon, and then fourth to me is Iowa at Iowa. But think about it. We could win. We could win these games.
To me, it's Alabama and Oregon are like 1-2. I think those two are far and away tougher than sort of the next tier to me is Penn State, USC, and then after that is Iowa. But I think that
so it's potential 5 losses, if you win 1 or 2.
I see 4. I see an 8-4 regular season with. I see a 9-3 regular season. Let's get excited. Let's say 9-3 regular season, losses against Alabama, Oregon, and USC.
See, I think we beat Alabama.
Bernie, I love your confidence, buddy.
Dude, everything about that is like our type of football. It's 11 a.m., which everyone hates, but we play well during it. It's at Wisconsin, and it's going to be lunacy there.
But imagine the lunacy it would be at night. Imagine if that was.
No. Listen, I totally get it. It's just not happening because Fox has this like complete wacky thought that people want to get up at 11 a.m. or 6 in the morning like me and go to Wando's and be first in line while they're cleaning up from the night before. I'm waiting to sit down. But I think listen, dude, I think we beat Alabama because I think it's just one of those you put on your calendar from last year and you're like, dude, we're going to play hard. I think the tough games will be USC traveling's tough, but I think we still beat them there. We've had a lot of success and we're coming on a bye week. We're going to go out early. We're going to get acclimated. I think we're okay there. I think Penn State's going to be very difficult, later in the season, depending on what happens with our team. I think at Iowa always sucks. Oregon going to be difficult. So you're talking about, I don't know. It's so hard to pick and choose which ones. I think we need to wait until we get closer to the season to pick those. But I think we beat. Listen, I just think we beat Alabama. Well, I think we have let down games somewhere else, but I think we beat them.
I mean, I would love that. I hope they beat Penn State. It's homecoming. I'm going to a homecoming game for the first time since I was an undergrad. So that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm just hoping that October 26th, it is rocking in Camp Randall for Penn State. I think it will be. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been a minute. Crazy. Bernie, I know you're not planning on being there for Penn State, but if maybe we can make you an honorary captain for the 20th anniversary of the game. I mean, I don't know.
I would be there. That I would be there for.
Okay. Well,
just a quick plug. You got Donnell Thompson and what's his name? My guy who I love. He played fullback, but he was like a D end or outside linebacker. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking.
Jimmy Walker,
who just went into the Hall of Fame. No, just went into the Hall of Fame. So they'll be captains for some games. What? I can't believe I'm picturing his face in my head right now.
Just went into the UW. Just went to the UW Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Donnell Thompson and Tarek Saleh.
Tarek, yeah, the all-time sack leader for the Badgers.
Yes, I can't believe I forgot, dude. He's like one of my good friends, and I love Donnell too, which is so like you just know these dudes from just playing football, but those guys will be captains, I'm sure, at some point. But I wouldn't hate being a captain.
Listen, let's see what. Let's see. If
I wouldn't hate being in the Hall of Fame either. In case anyone's listening, like I'll say yes immediately if anyone needs a volunteer.
Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get something special in line for that. That would be pretty special. I think. I mean, obviously, selfishly, I would love that, but also I think a lot of our listeners would enjoy that as well. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode. We appreciate you guys sticking with us, and thanks for letting us take a little bit of a summer vacation while we got we got our lives in orders and relax just a little bit. We'll be back with more interviews coming up soon. We've got a couple of really interesting guests in the work, a couple of returning guests as well. So we look forward to chatting with them and hearing from you. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate, review, all of those good things. And follow us on the social medias on Twitter and Instagram at Believe in Badgers. So once again, this has been Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin. You got that tired brain going here.
Dude.